Hey guys, what's up? It is Carolyn. And thank you so much for tuning in. Before I get started, I just want to say that I turned 30 yesterday and I am really excited about this new chapter in my life. But yeah, we'll get into that. Thank you for tuning in and listening or watching the Cafe with Carolyn. I'm Carolyn McKnight. If this is your first time, let me just say this. It's been a while. So this is like a gap return. Here at the cafe, I talk about things that I believe will move me forward as a person that wants to heal and wants to become the better version of myself. I like to share other people's stories. I have guests on the show whose stories I feel are inspirational and that is just laced with the fingerprints of God. We're Christian over here. We love Jesus over here. I started the Cafe with Carolyn because I wanted to inspire people. I wanted people to feel good about themselves. And I wanted to create a community around people that are serious and passionate about becoming the better version of themselves. We talk about mental health. I'm not a mental health professional at all, but I'm just a girl that I just said I'm just a girl, please. But I am literally just a girl that I'm passionate about becoming whoever Christ has created me to be. And that's true on here, off of here, on the street, in my house, wherever. That's who I am. That's what I'm about because the Bible says that the true us is hidden in Christ Jesus. So the only way that you get to the person that you were meant to be before the trauma, before the heartbreak, before, things in life attempted to break you is just deepening your relationship with Christ, fellowshipping with Christ, how we undo things, how we undo harmful thinking patterns and things that hurt us. We got to look into our mental health. We got to look into practical things that help us heal and move forward. And one of the practical things that I lean to is worship and reading my word because I find truth there. If that sounds like something you're interested in, do subscribe, do share. Welcome to the cafe. All right, 30s. So I turned 30 yesterday, right? Big lesson. So in my 20s, around 19, I decided to truly follow Christ. So my whole life changed 2016. I looked back, God delivered me from like the craziest mental health crisis and I have been better since. But I've had ups and downs, like life ebbs and flows, right? And one of the things that I've been learning about God, which helps me just in my everyday life, is that depending on the season that you're in, God will show you certain aspects of His self that fulfills what you need in that season. So probably around 2016, 2017, I really needed to know who God was as a protector and as a father. And that's like the aspect of his character that I really got to get to know well, like through the word and just through experiencing his presence. So that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned is you'll learn and experience different aspects of God depending on the season you're on and depending the way that you need him, if that makes sense. Second thing, so we all go through things, right? But there's points in our journeys where you're at the beginning, there's a middle, and then there's an end. My problem was it was scary for me to go forward and specifically like my vulnerability and like healing journey because I didn't know who I would be on the other side. And what I just didn't know what lied ahead. In moments where I should have been vulnerable, I locked up. In moments where I should have been emotionally and probably more intellectually honest about how I was feeling or how I thought about something, I locked up because I was like, I'm scared to move on from where I am because where I am is certain. I already know where I am. But to move forward in like, unmarked territory, it's scary. But I've learned that God is with you in the deep end. He's with you in the deep end and he's with you on the other side. When you come out better, when you come out stronger, when you come out braver. It doesn't mean that you won't come out with a few battle scars, but you'll be like this better, other stronger version of yourself. And that's scary. That can be very like, whoa, because you don't know what awaits, but it's worth it. If you can't trust anything else, you can trust that God is always, always wanting the best for you. So letting go of kind of like the familiar aspect of things and like leaning into what will be once I heal in this area, or what will be once I become more vulnerable, and trusting God in that way has been a challenge for me, but a really, really big lesson that I'm so glad I learned before 30, because it helps me to approach certain things with more confidence, because I know who God is and I can trust in his character. And that's another thing, trusting in God's character. Like, people miss that. Sometimes we don't listen to God, or sometimes it's hard to hear from God because we hear an answer, but we don't trust it. But when you trust his character and you know that he's for you and not against you, you are so much more likely to go and do what he says, regardless of whether you understand it, because you know that it's with the greatest intention and it's with the pure love that he's, hey, move over there. Hey, I'm telling you to do this. And that on that other side, it's going to be amazing, right? So yeah, trusting God's character. The way we do that, we got to be familiar with his word. We got to be familiar with his voice. And it's just like you getting to know a person. You can't get to know someone if you never spend time with them. You can't get to know somebody if you never, know their information, or know what they're about, or know how they sound, or know, it's really simple. I feel like people make that so much harder to understand. Spending time with God is you gathering all the information you need to know him. It's really that simple. So your fellowship, your prayer time, your worship time, just, I don't know, reading your word on a random Saturday, fellowship with God. You'll understand and get to know him a little bit more every single time, and you'll never regret that. Something else that I learned about in my 20s is good old community. Community is so important. I think I underestimated the power of community a lot in my life. And I mentioned earlier, like, I went on a vulnerability journey. It was really hard for me to be vulnerable in community, and that misshaped a lot of my relationships. It caused me to mismanage most people at the time, because I didn't know how to be vulnerable and I didn't understand what it meant, or how powerful of a tool vulnerability is, because it lets people see you and it lets you see them. Um, but more than being vulnerable, like before people, I had to first learn what it meant to be vulnerable before God. And then it became much easier to be vulnerable before people and not put on like this superficial shield where I felt like I had to be the strong friend, or the friend that never needed help, or the friend that was always just helping other people. That's exhausting. Nobody can keep that up. Like, that's exhausting. So knowing that God is my safe place, and knowing that I can trust him enough to put people around me that can handle my vulnerability, yeah, that's the sweet spot. And one of the ways that I learned that through some hard lessons is just the value of true sisterhood. Number one of I'm going to start, because I wrote these down, the 3 truths of sisterhood that I have gathered and that I stand by. And like, you can add some more if you want. But number 1 for me is, we are meant to be unified. Women of God are meant to be unified, period. Let there be no division among you. That's what the word says. Number 2, we are not naturally opposing forces. Let me say that again. Women, if you're a girl like me and you're on the other end of this podcast, or on the other end of this phone, we are not meant to be opposing forces. It drives me up a wall when people perpetuate this devilish lie that women cannot get along. That grinds my gears more than I cannot stand that. And that's regardless of what women do to each other. To me, that sounds like, you know how when white people be like, well, black people will do it to each other, or black people, I hate, I feel like it's the same thing when people say, Well, you know how women are. Women are catty. You know, no, women are not meant to be opposing each other. The God that I know, the God of Israel, okay, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did not create women to oppose each other. And you're not going to lie on my creator. So, first of all, I hate that. And I really want people to stop perpetuating that really harmful lie. Number 3, we do not have to settle. We can rise and heal together. Yes. So, women, forgiveness, healing, loving each other well, because sometimes we think that, well, you know, I love you, like that's enough. No, you have to actually love somebody well. And I'm saying this because there are times where I have not, and I thought that my intention was enough. And Sarah Jakes had this sermon, I can't remember what it's called, but she talked about your intention versus your impact. And that's just so true, because we can have the greatest intentions, but to be honest, like, that doesn't really matter if you don't know how you're impacting somebody. So your intention must align with your impact, or you must be aware of the way you impact people, period. So that you can't just rely on, well, you know, I didn't mean it like that. Well, you know, this, that, and the third. Let your actions align with that. Like, let the words of your mouth align with the love in your heart that you have for your sister. So that way, it won't be too much misconstruing and all that needs to go on, because you're saying loving things in a loving way. And that doesn't mean that people won't misunderstand or have moments of miscommunication, but it just means that you know you're doing your due diligence. 4th, do the work. I talked about healing. I talked about, you know, forgiveness and being honest and all those things. We have to be honest with ourselves. We got to know where we are. That is how I even am able to like do this podcast and talk about these things that I'm passionate about, because I had to start from a place where I had to know what was going on with me. I struggled with vulnerability. I struggled with this superficial armor I would put up because I was afraid of being hurt. I struggle, and I still, you know, from time to time struggle with that, but it's not like a stronghold in my life. It's not like something that is controlling my every interaction with people. I struggle with that, and it was a blind spot for me. And the crazy thing is, that was my prayer when I found out something was wrong. I was like, God, if I have any blind spots, please help me see them, because I knew I didn't have a bad heart, and I knew I didn't hurt people or, you know, intentionally tried to make anyone feel any type of way. But I wasn't aware of my impact, and I had blind spots, and I had to address them. And yes, it was scary. Yes, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not perfect. Like, like, it was scary. But even the ugliest truth about you, when God has it in his hands, you're in the safest space, because he knows you, and he knows what you're made of, and he knows what you're capable of, bad and good. But because he's good, and if you are submitted to him, you're going to be good too. You just have to submit your heart. And that is why I vehemently oppose this weird mean girl thing at church. I don't like it. I don't think anybody does, but I think the self-awareness part, I think some people are genuinely just not aware of their impact. They're just not aware. And even if they are, I think there's still a level of unawareness in terms of where they need to heal, as to why, you know, certain women are mean in church. And the reason why I'm saying specifically church, because if we are supposed to be loving and unified in one place, it should definitely be where we all worship. And I know somebody's saying, it's not just the church, we are the church. Yes, a lot of Christians go and gather in a building, right? Because the Bible also tells us that we should not forsake the gathering of saints. So, and I don't. I love community. I love being around other saints and worshiping God. Like, I just do. But the reason why some people don't is because they've been a victim to this like mean girl church thing. And if you've gotten anything from what I said, I said, my three truths of sisterhood and like what I had to learn. But imagine me on the other side. There are times where, because people didn't understand maybe where I was coming from, I probably came across as a mean girl. I, yeah, I can say that confidently. There was one point where I think I talked about this on a episode, but I was in college and I didn't have glasses on. I didn't have glasses at all, forget on. I couldn't afford them at the time, and I really didn't even know that I needed them like that. I was just kinda just living life, and I didn't know how much I needed them until I got them, and I was like, "Wait, this is what things are supposed to look like? Whoa." But anyway, I went years without prescription glasses, and so I was just used to literally just seeing blur when I was walking. Um, and I was just used to settling on that level until I got what I needed. But while I was on that level, one of my friends, we were talking in the Jeep and she was like, Carolyn, she was like, you're a good like person. She was like, you're really sweet. And I was like, thank you. She was like, I know that what she was talking about another young lady. I know that what she was saying wasn't true about you because, like, I know you. I know your character. She was like, so I know what she's saying can't be true. And I was like, well, what did she say? And she said, every time that she came out of class and she tried to wave to you, you would just keep walking forward and you didn't acknowledge her. You would just ignore her. And I was like, well, when did I was so confused because I had no recollection of ever seeing her. I didn't even know we crossed paths, in between classes. And immediately it hit me. I'm like, oh, I can't see. I was like, when I'm walking, I cannot see. I'm like, so if she's like waving and she's like far away from me, I'm not ignoring her. I just can't see her. And she was like, I knew something was up. She was like, that's not who you are. That's weird. But to that girl, I seemed like a mean girl. I seemed like I was, I guess, one way and then another, from her perspective, even though she was wrong, she experienced me as someone that would ignore her. But the other side of that, and I think what is true for a lot of us, is if she just came to me and said that, I would have been able to be like, I'm really sorry. I can't see. I wasn't trying to ignore you and I would never do that, but I literally cannot see. If you're on the other side of this quad, everybody looks like a blur. So I'm sorry, But the point is, depending on the level that we settle at, if we don't get what we need, if we don't heal or get whatever area that we need to heal in, people can experience us in ways that aren't true to who we are. So, it's really important that you do the work and you do heal. Just like me, I had to do what I had to do and finally get some prescription glasses. Even though I was used to seeing a certain way, it wasn't benefiting me. And then because of that, because I didn't really refuse. I didn't really have the funds at the time, but because I didn't have what I needed, somebody experienced me in a way that didn't speak to my character. So, all to say, like, heal, get what you need from Christ, get what you need from counseling so that, you're not impacting people in a way that doesn't speak to the love that you have, doesn't speak to the God that you serve. So, mean girls in church, if you don't know you're mean, you should probably do some inventory. You should probably, and maybe I'll do like a episode on like traits of a mean girl because maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know. I've, been on the other end of that too, like being in church, and I'm a fairly bubbly person. I like to say hi. I'm a girl's girl, as they would say. I love encouraging people. I'm like, girl, your shoes. Like, I'm that type of person. And so when I'm not met with that same love back, or when I can tell, like, sometimes it's not what people say, but it's just how their spirit moves. And you can tell you're like, you know what I mean? So that inspired me to, number one, talk about this here, but not make people enemies. Cause I don't believe that. I think sometimes people just need you to pray for them. Not everyone needs you to be their enemy. Like, oh, we're mad at all the girls that were me. Yeah, we don't like being treated like that. Nobody does. And nobody should be treating anyone below who they are. But the grace is knowing that when people come off a certain way or when they're dealing with a certain spirit, it may be something that they haven't dealt with inside themselves. And they need prayer. They need people bringing it to their attention in a loving way, and not giving them the same energy, but just, hey, she's probably got some crazy trauma. Her mama was probably her first bully or something like, you know what I mean? So having a little understanding, a little compassion will help you not take certain things so personal. And I can say that from my own experience, um, especially in church, like being treated a certain, just not nice. And it took a lot out of me not to be like, well, fine, I'm gonna do the same thing, or but spending time with God, I realized like, wait, some people they're just broken. Like, most of us are. And it shows up in different ways. Sometimes it shows up in how you treat people. For some people, it shows up at, you know, in a cup. For some people, we all have different things that we do where it is a glimpse to the brokenness inside of us. So I don't think that that needs to be met with like harsh judgment. I think it needs to be met with understanding and prayer, and just like somebody saying, "Hey, why is this happening?" in our community. But yeah, I know that conversations around like adult mean girls are happening, and especially in church, but I wanted to have it on my platform because I want to be able to say what I want to say about it. But yeah, I don't even want to label mean girls mean girls. I just want to say that my second truth of sisterhood, that we are not naturally opposing forces. Women are not meant to naturally oppose each other. And I want to have a conversation about how we can heal together, how we can come together and not further divide. Let's try to understand each other, and let's just cheer each other on. We're all going through things. So let's heal together, and let's make our King Jesus proud, because he doesn't want us down here just running amok in each other's lives. And I refuse to be my sister's enemy. I refuse. Um, so yeah, that's what we're talking about now on the Cafe with Carolyn. So grab your girlfriend, grab your sister girl, grab your cousin. If she's a female, grab her, because that's what we're talking about. I'm gonna have some guests on here to help me like facilitate this conversation, and we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna have fun, but it's time. It's certainly time. But thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning in for the first episode of the Cafe with Carolyn in a long time. But we're back. So thanks for watching, and please share. Bye, guys.